So when it comes to arriving in Bishkek by air, which is what I assume a number of people do, side note, you could take a train or bus from Almaty or Tashkent. When I was going there, it was still COVID. Going to multiple different countries was a bit laborious because of testing and showing vaccination status, etc. So I just stuck with Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. So I arrived in Bishkek, and it was pretty quick. Now, there's basically, in my impression, there's like two different kinds of airports. There's airports that are centrally located. Sofia comes to mind. It's on the subway route in Bulgaria, and then there's places like Edmonton where it's almost like it's another city away or something like that. And in Bishkek, the airport isn't very close at all. However, the Airbnb I stayed at, they arranged transportation, even though it was, oh gosh, I don't know, like 4, 5, 6 in the morning, somewhere around there. And they only charged 600 som. And the convenient thing is that a som is equal to about a cent. So it's about $6 US. It's actually 647. Coming back, he wanted 750 because it was in the middle of the day. It took a little longer. It was about an hour, but very reasonably priced, and very quick to go from the plane to the street. You know, I would have to give him props for that. So for transportation around Bishkek, I guess I would suggest there's three options. First of all, there's no subway. My understanding is that the USSR had sort of this like 1 million person milestone where if a city acquired 1 million people, then they would get a subway. And just as the Soviet Union was collapsing, they had just shy of 1 million. So now I think they have about 1 million people, but no subway. They have the typical bus trolley type thing. It really doesn't matter to the passenger. They all look like buses. And then they have the typical minibus. And of course you can take a cab. Cabs are obviously convenient for, you know, all the reasons you're familiar with cabs being convenient. But the language barrier can be a bit of a hassle. I've shown cab drivers where I want to go, and even then there still seems to be some challenges. So sometimes I just wanted to just take the cheap way, take a bus where you don't have to talk to anyone, or a minibus, and it was pretty straightforward. So the cost of a bus is 11 som, which is about 11 US cents, and then I actually forget what a minibus was. I believe it was like 15. I want to say 15 a som. And then, of course, minibuses, if they match where you're going, can be much more convenient. But so on a city bus, I found it to be less crowded, of course. And then a minibus, like, is literally like a Sprinter van, or like, you know, like a van that seats like 12 or so people. And I don't know what they do when they get full, because it seemed to get fuller and fuller. And people just put up with it. And then when I wanted to get out, I had to like squeeze by everybody and stuff like that. But it was a good experience. And the time I did take a minibus, it was exactly where I wanted to go. So it worked out well. But yeah, and then cabs are pretty inexpensive. I believe I only took a cab once. And I felt bad for the guy because it cost about 200 som, or $2 US. And I think it was like 25-minute drive because the traffic was just terrible. But he set the price, and I agreed, and it worked out well. And just to clarify, when you want to pay for public transportation, as a visitor, it's probably easiest just to pay by cash, or like change or what have you. And then if you're unsure, like maybe it's a few years from now, and the prices might have gone up, just give them more than what you think it might be, and they'll give you change. And that way you don't have to communicate with them, because they might not speak English. And then I believe like there was a system to pay with like a card of some sort, and it had like Visa written on it. I tried 4 credit cards or Visa debit cards or what have you. None of them worked. But it was super easy just to pay with cash. And like I said, they give change. I know where I'm from, I don't think you were able to get change when you paid with cash for maybe 40 years or something like that. So it's a little more user friendly in that sense. One of the more helpful sites I used when traveling in Bishkek and Tashkent was WikiRoutes, what do you want to say. So it basically provides all of the bus and minibus routes that you need in a helpful map. And so you can zoom in where you are. I stayed around here, and then you just click on it, and it shows you these are all the minibuses, and then these are all the regular, or they call it, this one's a trolley bus. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. It just uses electricity instead of gas. And then once you click on them, like let's click on 11 here. It'll give you a map of where it goes. And so obviously the most helpful thing to do is just to open it in a new tab and just sort of go through each one and see where it goes and see if it lines up with where you want to be. And that gives you some other information as well. There's the fare that I discussed. So let's find out the minibus fare. Because I was having trouble remembering, if you recall, and I think I said it was 15 som. So this one here. It says it's 12, so even less. It's only a 1 som more. At least that one is. I assume they're all the same price, but I could be wrong. But definitely helpful. It's not just for Bishkek. It worked in Tashkent as well. And it can help you navigate it. So that you're not having to ask questions. The last thing you want to do if you don't speak anything other than English is have to ask questions. On the way out of Bishkek, I went to the airport, and of course, when you're leaving there, you're spending more time. You're in the departure section. So again, like things were pretty quick. Bishkek's not a huge airport. It is their largest airport, and they have a few domestic flights, and then they've got obviously flights to Russia and Dubai and other sort of international destinations. But I think there's only like 8 gates. And when I was there, it was pretty quiet. It was pretty modern, though. Like, I've certainly been to airports in the U.S. that look more dated than this one. And everything was, so pleasantly, reasonably priced. I ended up getting a sandwich, which was, like, grilled like a panini, and it was, like, $2 or something like that. And then everything, like, all the stores are just called duty-free something or other. Like, I'm not sure how much duty is on Lego, but they had duty-free Lego. And then they had multiple places where you can buy alcohol duty-free. But considering, a bottle of vodka is about the equivalent of $5 US, I'm not really sure how much of a savings there's really going to be. And in fact, the prices didn't seem all that competitive to what you find in the grocery store anyway. But that's not unheard of. Duty-free seems to just be a bit of a marketing thing at times. But it was interesting. One of the things I always nitpick about is when you have to take like one of those little buses to the actual plane. They don't have a way of connecting to the plane physically. I always find that a bit of a hassle because you always have to wait for everyone to get on the bus and whatnot. Either way, it's pretty straightforward. I appreciate the airport. And it was just a short, I think, hour and a half to Tashkent. Yeah, it was a good experience, and it was not terribly expensive. It was through Uzbek Airways, and I believe it was about $60 or so. So pretty good deal, if you ask me. In short, Bishkek is a pretty reasonable place to get around. Obviously, very inexpensive, and to me, with the help of something like WikiRoutes or what have you, it's pretty straightforward. The airport's pretty easygoing. But yeah, I don't know. Obviously, like with any place like in Central Asia or something like that, the amount of people who speak English is not high, and that's sort of the biggest challenge. I have other videos on Bishkek as well as Tashkent. I am by no means a YouTuber of any sort, but when I went there, I wanted to document it, and so with the help of my new phone, I took thousands of pictures and a number of videos. And feel free to have a look at the other ones. And if you're planning on going there, I bet it'll be of at least some value. It'll provide some perspective and some information. So feel free to have a look at those.